Few stories chill the bones as much as the disappearance and murder of Dorothy Jane Scott. A single mother living a quiet life in Southern California, Dorothy had no known enemies, no dark secrets, and no involvement in dangerous activities. Yet in 1980, she became the victim of an obsessive stalker whose identity remains unknown to this day. Dorothy Jane Scott was born in 1944 in Anaheim, California. At the time of her disappearance, she was 32 years old, the mother of a young son named Sean, and known to friends and family as a responsible, caring woman. She worked as a secretary at Swinger's Psych Shop, a local store jointly owned by her father and another man, and also helped at a nearby shop called Custom John's Head Shop. Dorothy wasn't someone who lived a wild lifestyle. She rarely dated, mostly spent her free time at home with her son, and devoted herself to her family. Months before she vanished, Dorothy began receiving anonymous phone calls at home. The caller was a man whose voice she didn't recognize. Sometimes he spoke lovingly, telling her he wanted to be with her and professing his admiration. Other times his tone was menacing, filled with threats of violence. He made chilling statements about wanting to kill her, and Dorothy confided in her parents about her growing fear. What disturbed her even more was the caller's apparent knowledge of her daily life. He seemed to know where she went, what she wore, and who she was with. This suggested he was watching her closely. On at least one occasion, the caller told Dorothy to come outside because he had left a gift for her. When she opened the door, she found a single dead rose on her car windshield. It was a gesture both eerie and threatening, a sign that the stalker's obsession was escalating. On May 28, 1980, Dorothy attended an employee meeting at work. During the meeting, one of her coworkers, a young man named Conrad Bostron, began feeling unwell. His arm appeared swollen and painful, and Dorothy insisted on taking him to the emergency room. Another coworker, Pam Head, joined them. The three went to UC Irvine Medical Center, where Conrad was treated for what turned out to be a spider bite. While waiting, Dorothy stayed with her friends, never leaving their side. Around 11 p.m., Conrad was discharged, and the group prepared to leave. Dorothy offered to pull her car around to the front so they wouldn't have to walk far. Pam and Conrad waited outside the entrance for her to drive up. Minutes passed, but Dorothy didn't appear. Then, suddenly, her car came speeding toward them. Its headlights were so bright that they couldn't see who was behind the wheel. The car raced past them and out of the parking lot, leaving Pam and Conrad stunned. At first, they assumed Dorothy had some emergency with her son and needed to leave in a hurry. But when hours passed with no sign of her, they contacted the police. Police began searching for Dorothy, but she seemed to have vanished without a trace. Her car was found burning in an alley about 10 miles from the hospital, but there was no sign of her inside or nearby. In the days that followed, the horror deepened. The voice on the line matched the same one Dorothy had described before her disappearance. The calls continued for years, taunting Dorothy's grieving family. They would stop for a period and then resume again, as though the caller wanted to prolong their torment. Each time, he offered no clues about Dorothy's fate, only cryptic hints that kept the wound open. It wasn't until August 1984, more than 4 years after Dorothy disappeared, that her remains were discovered. A construction crew working in Anaheim County stumbled upon skeletal remains in a remote area. Tests confirmed they belonged to Dorothy Jane Scott. Her body had been partially charred, though investigators could not determine whether the burning happened before or after death. Alongside her remains were the bones of a dog, though it is unclear if the animal was connected to her death or simply coincidental. The discovery brought devastating confirmation to her family. Dorothy was dead. But it did not bring closure. The identity of her killer remained as elusive as ever. The most accepted theory is that Dorothy was killed by the very man who had been stalking her for months. His obsessive phone calls, his knowledge of her life, and the dead rose all point to someone fixated on her. The fact that the phone calls to her mother continued after her disappearance suggests the stalker wanted control and enjoyed tormenting the family. Police considered possible suspects among Dorothy's acquaintances, coworkers, and even customers at the shops where she worked. However, no solid evidence ever tied anyone to the crime. The calls to her mother were traced to public phone booths, making it difficult to catch the caller. By the time police arrived at the booths, the man was gone.